Bang. Right, let's go.
Lovely.
Fantastic.
Alice, you ready for the bit?
I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, God, I can't believe I'm doing this. Right. Bloody g'day, guys. Bloody g'day, guys, and welcome to Goats, the bloody best podcast on the planet. Now, this episode, it's a pretty fucking big occasion for me, as you know, Aussie born and bred. And today we're discussing the land of the kangaroo, the land of the koala, and the land of casual racism. It's my homeland, Australia. Now, today we're crowning the greatest Australian of all time. And obviously that's a big one. So we've decided to bring in some expert advice from none other than comedian, author, and renowned Australian, Alice Frick.
Yeah, hello. I'm from Austria, actually, not Australia.
Oh, fuck, boys.
But you sounded really good.
That was, to be fair, Seb, that was your best accent you've ever done, but you got it wrong.
It was very convincing. Yeah.
Well, that's good because I'm going to do it quite a lot in this episode. So, right then. Well, I guess fuck that up. But welcome to Goats. This week we are heading off to one of the most prestigious countries on earth, Austria, a country that I don't know very well. But according to Google, it's known for its beautiful cities, the Austrian Alps, where people like to go skiing, and, as I just found out, the Viennese coffee, which is apparently a bit like a mocha but sweeter. Is that true, Alice?
I guess so, if you read it on the internet.
It's good enough for us. Now, obviously, needless to say, when we're covering such a prestigious subject, we did genuinely need an expert, and that is why we brought in the incredibly talented, incredibly funny comedian and author, Alice Frick. Now, Alice, we've also already slightly introduced you, but is there anything I've missed in that list?
That sounds good. Yeah. That's and I'm from Austria.
You're from
Actually,
Austria?
do you know what? We in Austria, we have a T-shirt that you can buy, tourists can buy, and it says, "I am from Austria, no kangaroo." And there's a kangaroo crossed out. Because this is, we are very scared that people constantly confuse us for Australia. Thank God Australia doesn't get into wars or anything. But
That would be bad, to be fair.
Apart from the Emu War, which they
Oh my God.
very famously lost.
Have you heard of the Emu War, Alice?
when was that?
So, I mean, Michael can probably tell you better, but Michael recently covered...
After World War
War I, right?
Yeah, it was like 1930.
They had like an epidemic of emus, like the flightless bird. And then the Australian army were called in to deal with it, and they didn't do a very good job.
They had machine guns and 10,000 bullets, and they only killed 100 out of 20,000 emus, and it was a giant failure. So they just decided to put up some fences to stop them getting into everyone's farms instead.
Oh my God.
I don't know if this will make the cut, but have you guys seen, there's a really famous sketch of the Australian defense minister talking about their defense budget, and they're talking about how the Australian army spends some ungodly amount of money on their defense budget, but they're further from any known non-ally than any other country in the world, and their nearest three neighbors spend more than them combined, and they've never been in a war, but they still spend this unbelievable amount of money. But anyway, that's not important. Has anyone done anything interesting this week, or should we just crack on?
The only thing I've done interesting is I am officially a computer whiz, because as you'll hear from my voice in this recording, the microphone issue with my new computer has been fixed by me solely by me. So all these technical problems I've been having for the last, how long we've been doing this podcast, year and a half, all fixed by me without the help of Seb or Vinny, who know about computers and that. So just a big round of applause for me. I expect a medal. Hope the audience are very happy that they can now hear my laughter fully after not hearing it for the last 2 weeks.
No, Ben isn't.
Yeah, Ben isn't. What? Fuck Ben.
To be fair, we've had this this is such a refreshing episode, actually. We've had no technical issues, touch every bit of wood we can see. It's been seamless. Have I done
So
anything
far.
interesting this week? So far, there's always time to go wrong. Have I done anything interesting? The only interesting thing I've done this week, I don't know if we can put in the show, but I'll say it anyway.
Yes.
Oh God, yes.
I got incredibly high by accident, and then went and watched Barbie in the cinema.
By accident.
Yeah. So we've got a friend of the show called Thea, who sometimes lets me into a recording studio at work when I'm not supposed to be in there. And she smokes quite a lot. And I don't really smoke at all. But me, her, and my girlfriend were supposed to go out for the day. And then my girlfriend got a bit ill, so she couldn't come. So it's just me and Thea. And then me and Thea was sat in the park. Thea was like, do you want to have a smoke? And I was like, yeah, I'm a fucking legend, mate. I'll do whatever. And I thought I was fine. And then when I stood up, I couldn't feel my legs. And I was so incredibly high that we then went to the fucking cinema. And the moment the lights went off, I just raw panic. I was like, I don't know how to get out. The stairs are too steep. I'm going to die in here. And I spent the whole film asking Thea if Ryan Gosling's head had been made to look too big for his body, or if that was just me.
Oh dear.
Wow, that's great. How was Barbie?
It's good. It's a solid 7 out of 10.
Nice.
I'd give it. It's good. It has. I think it's one of those films where I hope that people go into it and try to enjoy it, because I think that there is potentially some ammunition to be like, oh, fucking, but it is a very good film. It just ever so slightly misses the mark on like some points that it's trying to make. And I think some people might use that as like it's just like woke culture gone wrong. But it is a really good film, and it does make a really good point. It just, there's a bit right at the end where it kind of misses a little bit. But it is really good, and from it looks incredible. Like, it looks like Barbie Town, and it is like the makeup and the set design and everything is stunning. But yeah,
I don't think it really needs to make a point, though, does it? I mean, it's a Barbie movie,
but it did make a point, and it made a good point.
Yeah, but the fact that it misses, it shouldn't be like slated for. It's Barbie,
true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. If you go in just expecting a generic Barbie movie, it's going to be 100 times better than you think it's going to be. I don't know what a generic Barbie movie is.
Me neither. I was just thinking, what is a generic Barbie movie?
Imagine all the Barbie movies that have come before this.
Right.
But no, if you just go in with like no expectations, I think it's a really, really good film. It was a little bit overhyped for me as being this like, it's going to have this amazing message that's going to like melt your brain, and I was like, it's okay. But then I was incredibly high, so I don't know what happened.
True. Do you think you're all set to watch Oppenheimer now?
Yeah, I'm going to take heroin to do that, I think.
I watched Oppenheimer on Saturday, actually, and there's a thumbs up from me. That's my entire week.
Nice.
That's good. That's a great review. That's all it needs.
I literally, to be honest, I need the loo like 45 minutes in, and then I was too stubborn to leave, and it's a 3-hour film, so
yeah,
that must have really added to the tension.
Yeah.
Alice, anything exciting happens to you this week? Feel free. If there's nothing, it's fine. No pressure.
Well, I'm going up to Edinburgh tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, for the Fringe Festival. And my comedy solo show is called The Anti-Self-Help Show, and it's based on my book called The Anti-Self-Help Book. And I thought I will bring books up to Edinburgh. So I literally packed 100 books in my bag. But then I realized there is no space for clothes. So, and I am not able to move the bag, so I don't know how to bring the books up. So now I unpacked my bag again, and I'm just shipping it. But today the delivery person didn't come and pick it up, so it's still like, where will my books be and where? But there's space for clothes now. But this was basically my whole week.
Well, I'll tell you where one of the books will be.
Oh, here it is.
It's gone. Oh no.
He's gone to bring my book, I think. Yeah, that's Hobie's.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes, we like that.
Normally he brings
right here. In all good.
It's blurry.
Okay,
blurry.
Why would it? Right.
Oh, yeah, I saw it for a second.
For fuck's sake. It looks like it's something really graphic that we're not allowed to show.
I can try to find a copy as well.
It's really good. I've been really enjoying it. It's got a bookmark in and everything because I've actually been reading it.
Oh,
and it's really funny.
Great, thank you.
Read.
I was also,
Nice.
I
What's
don't
the
know,
name of the book?
It's called The Anti-Self-Help Book, The Ultimate Guide to Finding the Right Way. And I just love it. You talking about your kind of endless cycle of like finding another thing that's going to like change your life. And this is going to be the one. And then it's like, you do it for a week and it's like, nah, it's not. And you just go on to the next thing. I can really relate to that. I've been there.
That sounds very relatable. Yeah.
But now we've actually really successfully and quite seamlessly plugged your fantastic book and Edinburgh Fringe show. Let's crack on with the show. So obviously this week we are discussing The Greatest Austrian. I don't know that many Austrians. I'm going to be totally honest with you. So I'm actually genuinely really excited to hear who you've all picked. And I think, Michael, you're going first.
Yes.
So Michael, whenever you're ready, would you like to tell me and the rest of the group who you have spent your time researching as none other than the greatest Austrian of all time?
Well, I will. But normally, I like to pick like a funny answer or do something silly. Then I tease who I've picked, or it'll be like a play on words. I'll change Austrian into like Gandalf or something. But no, this week I just thought I'll just do it seriously, not beat around the bush. I'll just tell you who I've picked straight away, and just go for it. So I've picked somebody who is multi-talented, one of the biggest action movie stars ever, and is absolutely jacked. That's right. I've picked Hugh Jackman.
What?
There it is.
What?
Hugh Jackman. Oh, Australian.
Oh my god!
He went through with a joke.
I did the joke.
I told you I wrote this joke. I put this down like days ago, and I was you saying that thing. I was like, God damn, do I come clean about my joke or shall I keep it? I'll keep it.
Beautiful. You got us all.
The worst bit is I was like, in my head, I was like, is he part Austrian or something? Like,
No,
Me too. I was like,
I fully, even though I did the exact joke not but 10 minutes ago, straight over my head, I was just like,
wow.
Nice.
I think it just shows how great a joke it is, the fact that it landed, even though we'd already discussed it and it's already been done before. But no, I've actually picked somebody who is Austrian. And the guy that I've picked is even more jacked. And he's maybe the biggest action star of all time. And he might be slightly less talented, but he does have one of the most iconic voices in history. It's obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger. And just a word of warning before we get talking about this absolute legend, there might be some very bad accents and impressions by me over the next 10 minutes or so.
No.
Can I just chip in with a question before we really get started? Is it true, because this is one of those rumors you always hear about Arnold Schwarzenegger, is it true that he sounds weird to Austrians as well?
Yes, because he comes from an area where people just sound weird in Austria. Oh God!
Okay.
No, that's not true. That was a joke.
That's right. No one's listening.
No. He does sound weird, but also I think the thing is his English sounds very weird because he learned English literally. Like my English teacher in Austria, she was actually Austrian and she taught us English, so we didn't have native speakers. And my English teacher always said in her lessons, let's just discuss it in German because it's easier for all of us. So this is how we learned English at school. So I think, and he's a generation before me or two before me. So I think his English is quite bad. And he's more not from Vienna, but more from the countryside. And therefore I think he has just a really funny accent he never got rid of.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and he learned English in America as well. Like as he was going to America, he could barely speak English, so he learned it from Americans as well. So,
which is the worst place to learn bloody English? Am I right, lads? Sorry, that's bad.
Oh, Britannia.
For God's sake.
So anyway, Arnie, who is this fella? Well, he was born in pronunciation incoming Thal. Thal, Thal, Thal.
Thal, Thal, yeah.
Yeah, in Austria in 1947. And at around 14, 15 years old, he decided to stop trying to play football. He was very tall, athletic, quite lean, and he wanted to become a football player, but he decided to stop playing football and he decided to try lifting weights instead. And he did some serious weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting and bodybuilding. And he got quite into this. And during his year of mandatory military service, he had to do 1 year's mandatory military service. He actually went AWOL for a week so that he could compete in the Junior Mr. Europe bodybuilding competition, which he won. And that was in 1967. No, sorry, it wasn't. I was reading the next line. So he could compete in the Junior Mr. Europe bodybuilding competition, which he won, and he spent a week in military jail because of it. Because obviously you can't just run away from the army, but just one of the many sacrifices that he made. I think there was a quote that he was like, he doesn't, it's well worth it to go and achieve his dreams of being like the greatest bodybuilder in the world. And after this, he set his sights on the Mr. Universe competitions, because Mr. Universe is like, the next step up. That's like the second tier. It's like the championship of bodybuilding competitions. And he won that at a junior level in 1967. And this made him famous around the world in the bodybuilding community, which is quite a small community in 1967, not like it is today.
Is Mr. Universe, is that like a global like tournament thing then, or is it like just European, or it's global?
No, yeah, Mr. Universe is global, and then the next one up, the Premier League of like the World Cup of bodybuilding competitions is the Mr. Olympia competition. So winning that is like the World Cup of bodybuilding. But winning Mr. Universe at junior level made him famous around the world for bodybuilding in a very small community. But it gained him a hell of a lot of attention for his physique. He's a big guy and he's got a massive chest. He's known for just having this like superhuman, gigantic chest. And then the next year, at age 21, he achieved his dream of moving to America, because he set his sights on going to America, being this big personality, he's got this gigantic physique, and he wanted to go to America, become a bodybuilder, and become a movie star. But he spoke very little broken English when he got there. So he had to learn English while he was in America. I know, we all look so surprised. But he started training out of the now world famous Gold's Gym, because back then it was kind of like it was a big bodybuilding gym, but bodybuilding wasn't where it was today. Arnie very much put it sort of on the map and made Gold's Gym the thing that it is today. And he competed in his first Mr. Olympia in 1969, where he came second to the previous 3-time Mr. Olympia champion. But he went back the next year in 1970, and at the age of 23, he became the youngest ever winner of Mr. Olympia. And that title he still holds today. He's still, to this day, like 50 years later, the youngest ever winner of Mr. Olympia, which is pretty crazy because nowadays you look on Instagram, you can see like some 18-year-old kid who's just like jacked.
Yeah, bodybuilding's like way bigger nowadays.
Science.
Sure.
Like, massive.
That is mad, actually.
Yeah, and he's only 23 when he won. Like, he's the best physique in the world, basically.
Yeah.
So he won that in 1970. But then he won 6 Mr. Olympia titles in a row from 1970 until 1975. He won every single title. And then he won it again in 1980. So he's 8-time Mr. Olympia champion, which is crazy. I'm pretty sure that's the highest, or joint with Ronnie Coleman, or maybe Ronnie Coleman's got 9, but it's still like, one of the best ever performances.
Yeah.
So at this point, he's like the biggest thing in bodybuilding in the entire world. Everybody who's into fitness and the gym and everything else knows about Arnold Schwarzenegger. And also the movie Pumping Iron came out in 1975, I think. So this put him on the map as well. It was a big, like, inspirational, one of the first like really inspirational movies of like, achieving this kind of stuff. And because of that, he really wanted to get into acting and movies. And because of his ginormous physique, it was quite easy for him to get small roles as some big action star, and that's exactly what he did. In 1980, He got the part. Oh no, sorry, it's not 1980. I actually don't know what year this is, but he got the part of his first part. Acting his first major role was in a movie called Hercules in New York,
Seen it.
and obviously he played Hercules.
It's a really bad film.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad film, but he played Hercules, this, massive, strong, like he's a Greek god. He's a Greek, Goliath, basically. But what's interesting about his first movie was that his accent was so thick, and they couldn't understand his voice to such an extent that they just removed all of his audio and just dubbed over all of his lines.
Oh my god!
It's the antithesis of like early Arnie films, where it's you can physically see him, but you can't actually hear him because it's not him. But he kept doing smaller and smaller roles and improving his English, and kept bouncing around these little, subpart roles and starring in crappy movies that nobody ever saw, until finally he got his big break. And he got the main part of Conan the Barbarian. Yet again, another just ginormous action hero wielding a giant sword. And he did speak in this movie. It wasn't dubbed over, so his English did improve at that point. Exactly. And it was a massive box office hit. So this finally put the Austrian Oak, which is his nickname, right in the limelight. Like, everybody's seen him now. They're all like stunned. Who's this? Everyone in the bodybuilding community has seen him, but now everybody going to watch movies has seen this like unit of a man acting and playing this giant character. And then in 1984, because of this success, he got the role, the one that we all know Arnie for. He starred in James Cameron's The Terminator as the Terminator. And Arnie's performance was just exceptional, in my opinion. It's brilliant. He didn't say that many lines, but he does a lot of like physical acting, and he's a physical guy.
It's almost built for him. It's just a very robotic, blank performance.
Just be massive.
Just be massive and slightly lumbering and confused, and he did that perfectly.
But I think he does what he can do perfectly, and that is he is a good actor because he's very robotic to an extent that is like well done. Like, lots of characters and actors have played like, I don't know, Frankenstein's monster, but they don't say anything, but they don't portray that. It's like a very physical performance of the Terminator, this killing machine. And it just cemented his place in cinema and cultural history forever. Like, forever, he'll be known as the Terminator. If he stopped there, he'd have been known forever. And every single kid in the entire world from this day forth will be quoting, "I'll be back." And Arnie was a superstar. Marks out of 10 for the
yeah, Alice, if you heard that, would you think that Michael was Austrian?
No, or just Arnie. I'll be back.
Oh, God, don't do it again.
Maybe Australian.
And after Terminator, he obviously went on to do tons of movies. He went on to star in the even better sequel, Terminator 2, where he spoke a lot more because he spoke to young Kyle Reese. Talked him through and everything else. He was also in Predator, which is another great movie, start of a massive franchise, and Commando, another, again, massive action star, big superhero role. Like, all these roles are just played for a big, massive character who's got a huge physique and huge presence. But he's not just a completely one-dimensional actor, because he also featured in a bunch of other movies, comedy movies, showing off his kind of sense of humor and his acting range.
I didn't know if these are going to get brought up. I don't know if these are points.
I'm glad they are.
They're great. For instance, in Junior, he plays a pregnant scientist with Danny DeVito. Hilarious. Think the juxtaposition of is Arnie. He's the Terminator. He's massive. He's like the biggest guy you've ever seen. He's terrifying. He's pregnant. That's so funny. Like, it is. And he's juxtaposed as well with Danny DeVito. And they do that other movie as well, Twins, where they're like secretly twins. And Danny DeVito is like this small, kind of squat-looking man, and Arnie's like a massive unit. It's hilarious.
I love.
Do you know what though? Arnie is who Dwayne the Rock Johnson wishes he was, but he could never be,
yeah.
because Arnie can take it on the chin. He can make himself look silly. He can lose a fight. He can be, whereas someone like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, he could never live up to that.
No. The Rock is not fit to lace Arnie's boots. Nowhere near.
I think he's a knob.
And yeah, so that's a real film. If you've never seen Junior and you think I'm just taking the piss saying Arnie's pregnant, it's a real film and it's great. Go and watch it. He's also in Kindergarten Cop, where he says that. I think it's Kindergarten Cop, where he's talking to the kids and he says that famous line, "It's not a tumor." You know that one?
Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah. And by far the best Christmas movie ever made. By far, Jingle All the Way, where he helps his son Jamie get the Turbo Man. Jamie, what do you want for Christmas? You want Turbo Man? I'll get you the Turbo Man. And in the end, Arnie becomes Turbo Man. And like his kids, think about that heartwarming story. Like all his kid wants for Christmas is Turbo Man, and he looks up and sees his role model, his father, who is. He releases the helmet, and his dad is Turbo Man. It's like, oh, it's so good. It's just Jingle All the Way is like it's the best Christmas movie ever. It's one of my favorite movies ever, and Arnie is the star. He is easily one of Hollywood's biggest and most iconic actors to ever grace the screen. His voice, his physique, like everything about him is just legendary on screen. I don't think there's a person alive who hasn't seen a movie that Arnold is in. Like, if you've not seen Terminator, you've seen one of these films. Like, I think everybody's seen Arnold Schwarzenegger in a movie. But I'm probably running out of time, so I've spoken a lot about the two things that he's most famous for. But he is also famous for having a pretty big political career. He was the governor of California from 2003 to 2011. He's still involved in American politics now,
as they used to call him.
Did they used to call him the governor?
They did, yeah. Not like officially, but that was like...
What's his face?
Not to his face, yeah.
No, I think
it's hilarious, but it's uninspired. The governor. Yeah.
Have you...
But it was great, actually, because when I lived in LA for a year, and I started to do comedy in English before I moved to the UK, and I went to LA. And it was the first time when somebody recognized me on the street, because I think Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor. So people knew the accent so it was like, oh, another Austrian. And never ever I was walking on the street talking, never ever somebody said, oh, I've seen you yesterday. But in LA, somebody saw me. And I think that's because of Arnold.
That's so good.
What a guy.
Although I have to say, in Austria, we have a football stadium called the Arnold Schwarzenegger Stadium, and we took the name off because we were so upset that he was for the death penalty. So he was, and then he got upset with Austria. So there is a little bit of a disagreement between him and Austria because we renamed his stadium.
That's big.
Yeah, because he's a Republican. I wouldn't look too much into his political views, but he claims he's
a Republican.
Yeah, because
he claims he's a bit of a liberal.
Oh, wow.
Like he claims he's a very loose Republican. Like he's not like, I don't know. He's like a full on.
He's the like, we can smoke weed, but we'll also kill the criminals. Kind of like that's his.
Yeah. I think he describes himself as a liberal Republican.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like.
But I didn't want to get too much into his political stuff because it's not quite as fun as, Kindergarten Cop and Junior and Jingle All the Way.
I don't know what you're talking about, Michael.
The death penalty's not quite as fun.
But he's a big environmental influence as well. Like when he was the governor, he signed some major documents for California about combating climate change and some legislation. And all those documents are still sort of signed today. So he did quite a few good things there. But I just think overall, like, just Arnold is just one of those names that will go down in history forever. Like, doesn't matter if you don't really know who he is or what he's done or what his ideas are. He'll just go down in history. Like, he's massive, both figuratively and literally. And in my opinion, he's probably the most famous Austrian in history. Like, he's someone who everyone has tried to imitate and impersonate.
Maybe not in history, but in entertainment.
Yeah. I think that's a bit more accurate.
Yeah.
There is this one Austrian, unfortunately.
Well,
a bit more famous in history.
Oh no.
We don't want to mention him. But
Oh, the best bit was
I thought
when
we'd
you
just
said that,
ignore it.
Alice's eyebrows went.
Yeah.
It was like,
Let's just pretend he is. We can just pretend Arnold is. That's much better.
yeah, I
Um,
think so.
But he starred in like people's favorite movies of all time, and he also made bodybuilding like the global sport that it is today. He's the biggest name ever in that sport. He's the Pele. He's the Messi of bodybuilding. Like bodybuilding would not be where it is today as a global sport, just without Arnold. And that's in itself is massive to basically kickstart a sport into the global sphere as well as everything else. So for me, he's got to be the GOAT. Like there's no one bigger than Arnie. It's fucking Arnold, come on.
Is that the end of your presentation?
That's it, yeah.
I'm not being funny. You didn't just go over time for 10 minutes. You went over the 15-minute time limit that we do when there's only two of us.
Oh.
Bloody nightmare.
Sorry. He's a big guy. He's got a lot to talk about.
Doc points.
Do you know what? I really liked it. I'd be interested to know if Alice has any points to say about Arnold Schwarzenegger, because obviously in my head, he's like the king of Austria. Like he walks down the street and everyone's like, oh my God. But then you said you fell out with him. So I'm interested to see how that's looking.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a love and hate relationship, I think, with him, because of course he made Austria quite famous, and every time I say I'll be back when I go to the loo or something, it's iconic now.
Yeah.
But I think, his political decision with the death penalty and stuff like that, I think Austria is a little bit more liberal than his political view is. But I think he has done. I think he's quite fun as well. When you see him in interviews or something, he can laugh about himself.
Yeah, so, I think he's quite like a fun. I think he's fairly down to earth. He's fairly like he can laugh at himself, and he knows what the score is. He knows that people think he's just this big guy with a funny voice, and he doesn't take himself too seriously like The Rock.
Yeah,
I think. And also, the other thing he's got going for you can say what you like about the death penalty and the politics, but not the most deaths or far-right politics by an Austrian. So he's doing all right there. So we already made that joke, and I tried to make it again. Let's move on. The first time was funnier. No, here's the notes I've written. This isn't to do with Arnold, but the concept of Mr. Universe being the second best in this planet is quite self-centered. To think that you're the henchest being in the universe.
Yeah, but Olympia comes from the Greek Olympiad, doesn't it? Mount Olympus, which is like transcends the universe because it's like godly. That's where like the Greek gods kind of live. That's why Olympia's even bigger.
Fair enough.
Makes sense, actually. Yeah.
The other thing I wrote is that he made it. I think he probably made men more able to say that other men were fit.
Yeah.
When you create it's quite. I saw a video of him doing ballet. I think he was probably quite like he broke down a lot of gender stereotypes in a way by being so focused on his body and on his preening, looking good. Back in the 70s. Men didn't do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and like Pumping Iron is just a movie of like sweaty, oiled up like guys just working out together and having a great time and doing the thing that they love. And people probably did see that in the 70s and were like, oh, that's cool. I can just enjoy that. That's fine. Yeah, I think you're probably right, Seb.
And then have you watched that thing about Bill Burr saying that he's like the manifestation of the American dream?
No.
Because it's like this illiterate Austrian guy comes to America, becomes an action star, and then becomes a politician, and then marries a Kennedy. And it's like, what the fuck? Because he also married a Kennedy, which is like the closest thing the Americans have to a royal family.
Married a Kennedy? Which one?
I don't know.
Did he?
He definitely did marry a Kennedy. I can't remember which one.
I know he was married and divorced in 2021, but.
And he also had a child with his housekeeper, I think.
He did have a child with his housekeeper.
Scandalous.
Yeah.
Scandalous. Well, anyway.
That is naughty.
After that, fantastic. I don't want to say it was an obvious choice, but but it was a good choice as well.
thanks.
Like, you can't argue with it. But I did. Is this funny or not? We'll give it a go. We can always cut it if it's not. So I just need to obviously, there was a bit of a mix up at the start of this episode. So the questions. So I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions at the end of your little speech, but they might not be as relevant as they would have been.
Oh, right.
You get the point.
Okay, so you're going to ask me some questions after the end of mine and everyone else.
Yeah, and then I'll ask them after Alice's and I'll ask them after Vinny's. Anyway.
Oh, God, this is going to be great.
So, thank you, Michael. At the end of that, I've just got some questions to ask you. In a segment I'm going to call Kangaroo Court. So, you've got to answer some questions about Australia's national animal, the kangaroo. Michael, in feet, what is the average height of a kangaroo?
5'11".
It's 5 to 6 feet. That's perfect. In miles per hour, what is the top speed of a kangaroo?
28.
You're miles off. 40 miles an hour.
40 miles an hour?
Yeah.
What?
Imagine that fucker hopping at you. Alice had to grow up with that. She was running about. That's how she got so fucking tough, mate. And let's just find one last question. That's the bugger. How high in feet can a kangaroo hop?
4 feet?
10 feet.
No, it can't.
It's a 40 mile an hour, 10-foot hopping fucker.
Maybe like one hop, but not continual hops. So they're not jumping 10 feet every
twice the
time.
height of it.
On my fact sheet, it says 7 to 10 feet.
That's horrifying.
No chance.
I mean, that's all. Don't argue with animalfactencyclopedia.com.
Okay.
Knows it's shit.
Reputable
So,
source.
on that note, Michael, you got none of those answers correct. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to
You
say
got the first one.
What?
You got the first one.
No,
Oh, yeah, I got the
yeah,
first
sorry,
one.
my bad. This is such a
Yes.
professional outfit. At the end of that, Michael, unfortunately, you only got one question right, which means you don't know fuck all about Australia, and you're never gonna come to Alice's cultural homeland. So, on that note, I'll just get my mate back. So, so stupid. So on that note, that was really good, but I feel like it's now like the headline act. Austrian Alice, who is the greatest Austrian of all time?
So actually, when you Google, there are quite a lot of Austrians. Because did you say you didn't remember any Austrians? Because there are, I think, I mean, obviously some Austrians we want to forget, like Hitler. I have to name him now. we say he was German, and then that's it. So we have done that. Also, we had Fritzl. We also forget him. We have a lot of bad people in Austria. Probably it's the wrong podcast for that. Probably the bad people from Austria. But other than that, Austria has a lot of. Do you know, for example, the guy who invented Red Bull is from Austria? So
I feel like I did know that Red Bull was from
Mateschitz.
Austria. Yeah.
So he is. I think he only had half of them was from Thailand, but he bought the concept or something.
Yeah.
But there are a few Austrians.
Yeah, their first football teams were in Austria.
Yeah, RB Leipzig.
Salzburg. Leipzig's in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I know that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Fucking idiot.
Just to get football in there somehow.
Let's just cram that one in.
Let's just sneak football in every time.
Sorry, Alice, I'll cut that bit. I'll make it sound like you just smashed it. Don't worry.
But yeah, so basically when you Google the best Austrian, you get there. Google gives you a list of 15, but all of them are men. So I thought maybe let's find an Austrian woman. And there are, I mean, I don't want to talk about myself today, but like, so who is that person? But there is actually a woman called Bertha von Suttner, and she was born in 1843. And she was basically, she was on before we had the Euros, we had shilling, and she was on the 1,000 shillings. So that's is quite a high note. So she was a famous woman on big money. She was the first woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1905. So she was a writer and a peace activist. And actually she was involved in calling it the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, because she was friends with Nobel. So, so what happened with her? So she was born in, did I already say? Yeah, in 1843. And she was a very optimistic woman. She was very positive and she thought that everyone can change. She said individuals can change, nations can change, everyone. And no matter what happens in life, you can always change. And she was very optimistic, although she was 33 years old and not married yet. So, and her father died before she was born. And her mother, she had a little bit of a gamble problem and got all the inheritance money was gambled away. So Bertha, when she was over 30, she was still not married, but she worked for the Suttner family. And then she fell in love with their eldest son. But she was not allowed to marry him because she was working for them and that was their son. So they basically sent her off to Paris. And then she worked for Alfred Nobel, who was the guy who the Nobel Prize is named after. And she had a good relationship with him. I think Nobel kind of wanted to hook up with her, but she said, no, I'm in love with this little boy. No, he was not little, but he was. Oh, no. She was in love with this. He was a few years younger. Maybe he was 7 years younger or something. I need to look that up. But she was in love with him. So she actually said to Nobel, no, I'm in love with him. So she went back. They got married secretively. And they lived in Georgia for a while as well. And she started to write books about, first she wrote under a man's name and published under a man's name. And then her most famous novel is an anti-war novel, and it's called Lay Down Your Arms. And it was an international bestseller translated in 12 languages, which is quite... and it focuses on it explores how war impacts women as well in the thing. And she later found the Austrian Peace Society, and she always wrote with Nobel letters, and she basically said, we should focus on peace and and he picked up on that. And they say, it always assumed that that's why it's called the Nobel Peace Prize, why it focuses on peace. And she didn't win the first one. She won, I think it was the fifth one 5 years later. After
so it's not like she invented a award and then got given it.
Yeah.
No, that's she contributed to it. I think after Nobel died, they came up with the award, and he described it as a peace award, and that was influenced by her. Amazing. And she was quite influential. Unfortunately, what happened, or maybe fortunately, she died a few weeks before the First World War started. So that was probably for her fortunate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a very poignant moment in history to be writing anti-war stuff and very peace at the turn of the century, because what's just about to kick off around the corner.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very important time to be talking about those things.
It's also weird because I think people obviously historically it's hard to imagine what it felt like in the lead up to those times. But when you do look into history and people talk about the feeling of I've heard it described as bubbling, people felt something was coming. And it's terrifying to think that people for decades before could feel this catastrophe coming over the horizon. And then it happened, and it was as bad, if not worse, than anyone could have imagined. That is
worse.
Quite
especially
grim.
Yeah, especially before the First World War, because Austria was a humongous country. I mean, we were huge, but our emperor lost everything because there were constantly wars and this and this, and we were humongous, but then we shrunk quite. I mean, Bertha von Suttner, she would not have been Austrian. She was born in Prague, actually.
Oh, right.
But
okay.
that was part of Austria.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because Austria, just everything belonged to Austria.
I had no idea there was such a big Austrian empire. I feel quite embarrassed to know.
Massive, yeah.
Austria was basically huge. But we didn't do well in politics, so
it's all right. We know the feeling.
It's like losing at risk, isn't it? Or you start losing all your territories. Oh, damn it.
Yeah. So basically that was my my famous Austrian, my greatest Austrian.
So can you remind me how to say it properly so I don't make a dick of myself?
Bertha or Bertha?
Bertha.
If you want to say it Austrian, it's Bertha, but in English,
Bertha.
yeah,
Bertha.
very good. Von,
Fun.
like almost fun, but like fun trap. But
yeah,
von Suttner.
Bertha von Suttner.
Yeah,
Bertha von Suttner.
Beautiful.
The quarter of me that's German is doing fucking fantastically. Bertha von Suttner. Now that's actually brilliant, Alice. Thank you for putting that in the chat.
I did not know you could do that.
I didn't know.
I didn't know you could type things in this.
So embarrassing.
As we established, I'm not very good at
every week.
computers.
I promise we do this every week. But Alice just for the audio listeners, Alice wrote in the chat of Zoom, and the rest of us three lost our fucking minds. Everyone went, "Oh my god, I didn't know you could do that." Well, she typed in the chat. She's like, "Some kind of wizard." Anyway, first and foremost, I just want to say, Arnie is sweating a bit now, isn't he? Because he might have been hench and been in some films. But he didn't win a Nobel Peace Prize, did he?
Yeah, no.
He didn't foresee the Great World War coming over the horizon.
No, but
he did have.
He did. He was Turbo Man.
He was Turbo Man. You can't argue with Turbo Man. And maybe if Turbo Man had been around, who knows what could have happened.
Nothing bad would have ever happened.
Nothing bad would have happened. No, it would have been so much worse. Anyway, well, that was fantastic. I was pleased to know there was a brief period where I thought that she had invented the Nobel Peace Prize and then been given it. And I was thinking, but no, that didn't happen. It happened after he died. So that's fine.
Yeah. And it's not, she's not mentioned with the Nobel Peace Prize. She's basically, every influence she had, it's forgotten about. But so what I read about her is that she influenced the idea to make it a peace prize because she was so driven by peace that she convinced Nobel to accept
make
or
it about
that celebrate peace or people who promote that. But nobody talks about it when they talk about the Nobel Peace Prize or where it comes from. She's I think you can almost not find her unless you really look for her. So that's the sad story that
which is a shame,
forgotten. But yeah, if she created it and then won it, that would have been probably also very typical Austrian, but we do these things, yeah.
Wow. She was the
I learned so much during that. I didn't even know that Nobel was a real person.
Okay.
Did everyone else know that?
Yeah, yes. I did actually, yeah.
I thought it was oh god, here we go. I thought it was because you were very noble. It's a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you know what I mean?
Oh god.
Isn't the interesting thing about Nobel, whatever it's called, is that he, like, his whole life he dealt in like ammunition and like made like dynamite and stuff, and then I think a local newspaper accidentally they thought he was dead, so they reported his like obituary, and everyone was like, "Oh yes, thank God that like warmonger is dead." And he was so like shocked that at everyone's reception at him that he decided to make the Nobel Peace Prize to like give back to humanity because he was so like disgusted with himself.
Changed his ways.
Well, that's wild.
Yeah. That's really fitting. If that's true, that's really fitting with Bertha's like ethos as well of like everybody can change.
That is so true, actually.
That's very poignant.
Wow, that is very poignant. Also, can I just say, if you Google Bertha von Suttner, she looks exactly how you think Bertha von Suttner would look. She looks like an early 19th century Austrian woman. So that's good news. Just hold that in your mind's eye, and that's exactly who it is. That is so interesting. God, very poignant. Well, on that note, good day, fellas. So, Alice, first and foremost, I just want to congratulate you on your fantastic speech there. Was she an Australian? We'd be proud to have her, although maybe we weren't, because we are quite racist as a country. So You think I'm joking? I've been. It's sort of fun and sort of shit. Anyway, not the racism, the country itself. Just to clarify that. Now,
Right, yeah, good. You needed to, that was a good footnote, Sam. Well done.
Anyway, look, just to make sure, Alice, that you are truly as much of an expert on Australia as you say you are, I'm going to ask you some questions about another famous Australian animal,
Koala.
the koala bear. Now, I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions. First and foremost, does a koala bear have a tail?
Like a little one, like a button tail. Is that a tail?
It doesn't have a tail, no. I thought it did, and I googled it. It's just got a flat ass, like a, I don't know.
Yeah, bears don't have tails.
I thought
That's
it's like a button. Do they have like a little button?
I think the one in the toilet paper ads does have a tail.
Okay,
but I don't think they do in real life.
I think that's a Mandela effect. I think koalas not having tails is like a Mandela effect. Everyone thinks they have a little tail.
You think Nelson Mandela's got a tail? No. Anyway, second question. Second question for Alice. What is the top speed in miles per hour? Or you can do it in kilometers an hour because you're European, and I'll translate it. What's the top speed of a koala bear? You know, on the ground, going at full pelt, chasing you. How fast is he?
So I go in kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
I would say like maybe 5 kilometers per hour.
I don't even have to do that. 5 kph in miles per hour. Just going to double check my message. No, so that would equate to about 3.1 miles an hour. The actual, and this is according to animalfactsencyclopedia.com, so don't come for me.
It's like 100 or something.
No, the top speed of a koala bear
Faster
at full tilt is 18 miles an hour.
No, it's not.
Which is, no,
They sleep the whole day. How can they be so fast?
That's like 25. That's like 20 plus Ks.
That's 28.9 kilometers.
No chance. Imagine you're driving your car that fast and a koala's keeping up with you on the road, just next to you. No way.
To be fair, maybe they could just sprint for like 5 seconds at that speed, but then they can't go.
What do marathon people run? How quickly do they run?
It's got to be about the same, isn't it?
Well, no, they do. Well, they can work it out. They do about 10 mile an hour.
Yeah.
They do about 10 mile an hour because they do 20 miles in 2 hours, don't they?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, I just Googled it and another site, the Department for Environment and Science Queensland, that's an actual Australian government website, moving up to speeds of 30 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, but that's just the Australian government trying to make them sound more interesting.
Well, look,
there's no way a koala's running at 30 miles an hour.
No, 30 kilometers an hour.
Don't care.
That's like how fast some footballers are.
Yeah, that's rapid.
Anyway, yeah, that's it. 30 kilometers an hour is the top speed. So you, unfortunately, Alice, you've got none right so far. I'm just gonna pick another. What is the koala bear's favorite food? This is an easy one. I feel like everyone
Eucalyptus.
Eucalyptus, mate. Fuck yeah.
I would have said bamboo.
You would have said
so would I, but then I was panda.
That's panda. There's panda, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, Alice, it turns out you know as much about as Australia as Michael does, which means, unfortunately, you're going to be kicked out of your home nation and you're going to have to live somewhere horrible like Austria or the UK, which I wouldn't wish on anyone. On that note, Vinny, it's your turn to convince us that you've picked the greatest Austrian who has ever lived.
God, okay. Christ.
That is the theme of the show. Don't sound too shocked.
He's only just realised that he's been doing this
60-odd episodes.
4 weeks. He's like, oh my, this is massive. Wait a minute.
This is stupid. This can't be done. This is like a joke.
Yeah, I'm ready.
The time is already going, mate.
Oh, okay. So, psychology is undoubtedly an extremely helpful field of science. especially nowadays where the rise of people with mental health problems is being acknowledged as a massive crisis. The benefits of psychology could include, that's right, the benefits of psychology could include researching mental health to help enhance our well-being, better understanding the relationships we form, self-improvement, or even battling addiction. But the actual science of psychology is very new compared to many of the other sciences. We've only really been studying it properly for just about over 100 years now at this point. And it was all spearheaded by a man who is known as the father of modern psychology. But before we get to him, I think it's important to note what the scene of psychology was like before it became a proper science. You see, it was basically a hot dumpster fire. Psychology in the 18th and 19th century was rife with pseudoscience and utter nonsense. For example, phrenology was a hugely influential field at the time, which aimed to figure out people's mental illnesses by measuring the bumps on their skulls. Safe to say, although it was extremely popular at the time, it is very clearly bullshit.
My head looked like the fucking moon.
It wasn't until the latter part of the 19th century where a German man by the name of Wilhelm Wundt founded the first psychological lab, which would be exclusively dedicated to the research in the field of psychology. He was also the first person to call himself a psychologist. Now, this helped spark a boom in the field and helped give legitimacy to the studying of the human mind. But it wasn't until the 1890s where an Austrian, that's right, was making waves all around Europe for his wild new ideas. That line sounds awful if it was like the 1930s. But anyway, I didn't do Hitler.
Thank goodness.
That man was a dude by the name of Sigmund Freud. Now, you've probably all heard of Sigmund Freud, for better or worse. He is an extremely controversial figure, even in his time, but was undeniably pivotal in the studying of the human condition. He isn't called the father of modern psychology for nothing. But before I go into how he earned that title, I think it is reasonable to go into part of the reason why he's considered so controversial. Because despite his massive advancements in the field of psychology, many of his theories on the human condition have been widely debunked and laughed at since. For example, he believed in the idea that every young girl, upon seeing a penis for the first time, gains extreme anxiety around the fact that they don't have one, and thus will fight their mother over the affection of their father for said penis.
Oh, for God's sake.
This is known as penis envy.
That is balmy.
Well, it's widely discarded by literally everyone. Even at this time, people were like, that's a bit off, mate.
That doesn't sound right.
I didn't know it was that mental. That's horrible.
Yeah, he had some weird beliefs. But I'm going to talk about the good stuff he's remembered for. And there is a lot. So Freud as a person was always deeply still laughing.
Let's just hope that this good stuff outweighs the penis thing, because that was a bit
that was really weird penis stuff he said. The rest of it, honestly, that was
I think you got to be a bit mad to be a crazy innovator, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You got to come up with some weird stuff like that every now and then if you're going to be like pioneering fields of science.
If you said that down the pub, you'd get sectioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, Freud as a person was deeply, deeply interested in people's brains and minds. He was known to just walk around town and just talk to random people so he could just understand why they think the things they think and what they're thinking about. This interesting hobby of his developed into the first ever psychoanalysis, which is more or less what talk therapy is, which I think is kind of wild to think that before Freud, talk therapy, which is like the most standard type of therapy you can get. This didn't exist. Nobody did it.
And when was this? When was Freud? When was this?
Like 1890s, he was doing this.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
19th century.
I think
1900.
it existed a little bit in church as confession because people came and talked, and so it is not totally new, but it's just more religion.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
She's mugged you right off there. That's a really good point.
Freud believed that patients with mental health problems had induced some sort of trauma as a child. This trauma would bury itself deeply within the brain and would then later develop as negative emotions and thoughts such as depression and anxiety. He believed that talking about the trauma was the only successful way of relieving it. Freud also developed the idea that everyone has the conscious mind, which are the thoughts and feelings in the front of your brain that you know you're feeling and thinking, but also the subconscious mind, the thoughts and feelings which existed on a sort of level below the conscious mind, but which greatly influenced the conscious mind as a whole. He also put forward the hugely influential idea that one's personality is made up of three components: the id, the primitive and instinctive part, the ego, the conscious part of your brain, which is fully aware, and the superego, which is the part of your mind which handles the kind of values and morals of society at large. He argued that the right balance of all three components led to a healthy personality, whereas an imbalance leads to mental health issues. Freud even came up with the idea that people use defense mechanisms to avoid difficult or challenging ideas and thoughts. Although many of his ideas have been largely discounted, like the penis envy thing, or even the idea of repressed memories, which nowadays people are like, yeah, that doesn't exist. We don't think it exists. But for a while, everyone did think it existed.
There was a big... So through my other job, which is working at a true crime podcast, we did a whole fucking thing about repressed memories. There was this whole, like, what's it called? They don't call it repressed memories. They call it like... So there was a whole phase of people believing that they'd been victims of like satanic ritual abuse that had never happened. It was just like people would go to a therapist and they'd say, you are showing the symptoms of someone who's been through satanic ritual abuse. And then already mentally unwell people would then be convinced that they'd been through this trauma that had never happened. It became like this fad. Very strange.
Can I add to that? Because I think Freud, the interesting thing about Freud is that he had cases where he had children or individuals who were like hysterical and they showed symptoms of child abuse. And he said they showed symptoms of child abuse. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, he did a 180-degree turn. And he said, no, actually, the patients, they haven't been sexually assaulted. They have fantasies about it. And it is assumed that he did that because the people who came with their kids to him paid him.
Okay.
So, and that's why and it is also assumed that he comes out of a family of abuse.
That would make sense.
So I think Freud you have to see Freud with a little bit a distance as well, because I think he's maybe overrated. And when you look into details, and he was also addicted to a lot of things. I mean, he smoked.
Massive cokehead.
He did coke and he smoked 40 cigarettes a day or something.
He wrote like a book on his love of cocaine. I'm not joking.
This guy's right. I'm struggling to see some positives here.
But this guy invented therapy. Like, this guy invented fucking psychoanalysis and modern psychology. Like, the thing is, he like came with these ideas and they were like, what the fuck's this? This is crazy. But he also gave some weird ideas, loads of weird ideas. But like the people around him then were like, okay, that's really interesting. We'll take the ideas we actually like and then we'll develop them further. And then those things like Carl Jung and whatnot, they like went off and did stuff which like nowadays we're still like, you know, that we still what's the word, like agree with and whatnot. But you know, like he set the ball rolling on all of that stuff. Yeah, he came up with some really weird stuff, and obviously everyone nowadays everyone laughs on him, everyone dunks on him because he did say some weird stuff and believe some weird stuff. But he without him, he wouldn't. I don't think he would have had a modern psychology.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, like, because like I've known people who are really into psychology, and all of them say like they just love memeing on Freud and just being like, this guy was just like the weird shit he said, but they all like have this incredible respect for like the work he did and how it was so fundamental to like the field of science that is psychology. Like without him, I don't know how far it would have been set back. But
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's Freud.
That's Freud.
Is that your is that's full Freud?
That's full Freud.
We've gone full Freud. Wow. It's an interesting pick, Vinny. And what I respect is that you've picked someone who, as you say, right now, is getting dunked on a bit because of the penis thing and some other things. What he has in his favor is he did definitely lay a hell of a lot of groundwork, and he's a bit like, I don't know, he's got an Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of quality. He's by far and away the most famous psychologist ever. Like, there's no, I can't even name another one. Like, if you say a psychologist, people think of Freud, and people quote Freud without even knowing they're quoting Freud. Like when, and this is a point in against him actually, is when, and I think this is a feeling we've all accidentally had, is when you've got a girlfriend or something and you accidentally call them mum, and everyone's like, oh, that's a thing, and that's a thing that you did, and it's fine, it's just an accident. But he made that weird, and that's a point against Freud, I think.
What is this? What very specific example?
No,
Seb, are you?
No.
I think we need Seb. Should we talk about
right?
this?
Can we just rewind a bit? That was just an example, but like, you know, when it's like when you call your teacher mom.
Freudian slip.
That's it. There's no such thing. It's just an accident. I just said the wrong thing. Stop making a big deal out of it. But we've all been there where like you're like, oh, I don't know. You just say one thing and you mean the next, and everyone's like, oh, that must mean you want to fucking have sex with toast or something. And it's like, no, I just said that by accident. Okay, leave me alone.
Was he kind of the first person to school the thought of like conscious versus subconscious then as well?
Well, he came up with the whole subconscious thing.
That's pretty big, because I know a bit about therapy and stuff, and subconscious is like you wouldn't have any therapy or mental like health knowledge without understanding the distinction between conscious and subconscious thought.
On that note, Vinny, mate, I need to ask you some facts, because you couldn't be more ready to be asked some facts. So, have you heard of the wombat, Vinny?
Yes.
If you had to guess, what?
I actually don't know what a wombat is, though.
It looks a bit like.
Is it like a bear?
It looks a bit like a koala that's on the ground, if I'm being completely honest.
Is it a marsupial?
Yeah,
with a tail.
Well,
Is that the first question?
Let's not fucking steady on, Alice. Let's not fucking get ahead of ourselves. Do you want me to send you a picture of a wombat, Vinny?
I can just look it up.
Yeah, just Google.
Hey,
wombat.
sat in front of a computer
right here.
Because I just, I don't, you know what a wombat is.
Sure, I guess I do. I don't really, but carry on.
What is a group of wombats called?
A cloud.
It's not called a womble, is it?
It's not called a womble. It's called a wisdom. A wisdom of wombats.
That's a hot. That question was so difficult. I was just
yeah.
They're all silly. That's the point of the game. Okay?
That was pretty hard, considering do
horrible,
koalas have tails?
Okay. Well,
That's a yes or no.
How tall is a kangaroo? What do you call 50,000 wombats in a room? A wizard.
it's a wisdom. Right?
A wizard.
Okay. Now, question number 2. Are they born with hair?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. They're born hairless and blind.
Sweet.
Like
moles. This is my Steve Irwin impression. Now, blimey, fellas. The last question is, we've asked it for every single one. We got to know. What's a wombat's top speed?
I'm going like 100. Fuck it.
It's at 100. No, it's actually 18 miles an hour again.
Oh, okay.
They're the same
No
speed as
chance.
koalas. I don't believe it either, but again, Animal Facts Encyclopedia.com. It's not done us wrong so far. But again, Vinny, you've only got
We
the
all
one
got one
question right. So just like Alice and Michael there, you're never coming to Australia, mate.
Sounds good.
But
From what you've described it as.
Yeah, koalas and wombats sprinting down the road at like
Massive
20
racist
miles an hour.
sprinting at you at 30
a
miles an
massive
hour.
Yeah.
racist koala running at you.
Yeah.
Look. Well, I can stall no longer. I have to crown a goat. And I've got to say, it's a great episode. Alice, I love how seriously you've taken it. You're fully on board with the concept. We're finding a goat tonight. Freud, Vinny, I'm sorry.
Your mic's clipping loads, by the way, all of a
It's probably
sudden.
because I'm really close. Is that better?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Again, I do this for a living. So Freud, unfortunately, you went with the weird penis stuff early doors, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, which again makes that. And now me saying that, I'm like, oh, Freud, the thing I was thinking about it. Just saying, it got in my head early doors, and I think what he did was great, like in terms of setting the ball rolling. But the stuff about him maybe giving child sex offenders a free pass, that is quite a big black mark. Bertha von Suttner, or Beate von Suttner. Was that how it sounded before?
Sounds good.
Beate von Suttner. Again, it's a fantastic shout. I'd never heard of her. She won a Nobel Peace Prize. She's the second ever female Nobel laureate behind Marie Curie, and that's a big fucking list. She's a pacifist and a novelist, and she saw the war coming.
Was she secretly a paedophile? I'm going to quickly research this.
She was also, unfortunately, a nonce. No. No. Unfortunately, what she wasn't. And
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I feel like Alice is
no,
going to
Seb.
hate me for this. But what she wasn't was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh no.
Oh.
See, when Vinny was doing his thing, I was like, you said like, oh, Arnie was sweating when Alice was talking. I was like, oh damn it, now he's gonna be sweating even more. This is before the pedo thing, because I was like,
right.
what am I against? A Nobel Peace Prize winner, the guy who invented psychology, and all Arnie's got is like, get to the chopper.
No, I know.
I was
and
like,
I'm really,
surely.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, and I'm Alice.
Should've
I'm
just picked
really
Mozart,
sorry.
fuck's sakes.
But he just is, from an outside perspective, when you think of Austria, you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He couldn't speak fucking English. He became a movie star.
No,
And
he still
then-
can't speak English.
And he still can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
His nickname is the Austrian Oak.
Could he speak English a bit when he turned up
Where? To America?
to America? He couldn't speak English, could he?
A little bit.
So he could speak a bit of it. He can still, yeah, look, right. What he did doesn't make sense. He couldn't speak English. He became a movie star. And then he was a joke. And then he was the governor of California. And then he had a kid with a housekeeper. And that is the American dream. And we're not an American show, but it has to be commendable. That's ridiculous. And Beate von Suttner, what she did was great. But when you think about an Austrian, unfortunately, and this is a failing from Austria, maybe if Austria tried a bit harder and you rewrote some of the history books and you rename that stadium after her. But you haven't.
That's a great
I
shout.
should. I will go back to Austria and say we call the stadium the ex-Arnold Schwarzenegger Stadium we call Bertha von Suttner.
Exactly.
That's my mission. I shall do that.
That would be
you should
brilliant.
do that. But
Then
unfortunately,
I come back and then I win this.
Yeah.
and then you find out what I really want is for you to come on the show again, and I want for it to be a running gag that every time Vinny picks someone, you find out they're a pedo.
Perfect. I'm sure I can do this. Believe me, there are a lot of them out there.
I know. The worst bit is my job somewhat relies on it, and they're just endless. We keep writing stories about pedos, and they just keep coming. This only makes sense if you realize I work for a true crime podcast. I should point that out. Anyway, I am, against my better judgment and against Alice's will, I'm unfortunately going to have to name Arnold Schwarzenegger the greatest
Yes.
Austrian of all time. Now, Alice, my only disappointment in this whole episode was that I thought that you were going to pick you, and I thought that would have been incredible. But sadly, Bertha von Suttner probably has got a little bit more done than you, but there's still time.
Yeah. And she has been on the Austrian money, so maybe that's my next goal.
You could
It's
get
my
on the
next solo
money
show.
and then get on a football stadium and then support the death penalty and then get taken off the stadium.
Perfect. That's how you
Is
do it.
Arnie on the money?
No, because I think we have euros now. So
Oh, of course, yeah.
Does he
Who's on
still
the
come
euros,
back?
actually? I don't know.
Then you have
Who
like
is on the
Austrian euros. Like, doesn't every country have their own like?
Yeah, do we have our own people on the?
Austria.
Do you have like?
I
like,
pay
a lot
by
of
card.
bridges
I don't know
up
anymore.
Yeah.
What does money look like?
Austrian money, the euro, pictures.
I can't think if the Euros have any.
It's all Arnold Schwarzenegger. When you look at it, it's just all him.
Really?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, it's not really.
No, it's
It's,
not.
It's all him.
no, it's all Mozart. Obviously, it's all Mozart. I can't believe no one picked Mozart. But
I'm just
anyway,
gonna put Mozart.
the trouble
sakes.
is you didn't. You picked a pedo, and now Arnie's the greatest Austrian. And that's just how the day goes sometimes.
Oh
Vinny.
no.
I don't want to be on the show anymore.
It's all right. He says that all the time. Normally, when I've hosted, that is a running theme, actually. Vinny looks the most disappointed after an episode after I've hosted it. And on that note,
Imagine finding out someone that you thought done lots of great stuff in the world was a pedo.
we've all been there. That's been the last 6 years. Everyone we all respected has turned out to be a pedo. Anyway, on that note, it's time to end the show. Everyone, go and buy Alice's book, The Anti-Self-Help Book. Where can people buy this book that's blurred out?
You can buy it on Amazon. It's available there, and yeah, that's the only place actually. So
We'll put it in the description, and the Rude Goldberg machine of hate will make sure it gets to you in less than 24 hours.
And could I plug something else?
Plug everything.
Okay. So I run an old female comedy night in Soho called Laughing Labia, and the season starts again on the 1st of October. It's every first Sunday of the month.
Fantastic. Everyone go to that.
Brilliant.
We'll turn up. Maybe not
Perfect.
Vinny. And
I won't. So I can't get to London for
yeah, you can. Is it Wednesday? When was it?
Sunday.
Sunday. You could come on a Sunday.
maybe in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you've got a kid or anything.
15 years,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not like I've got any. Yeah.
Go and watch. Was it Laughing Labia? Sorry, I've got the memory of a sieve.
Yeah, Laughing Labia.
Go and watch
Laughing
Laughing Labia on Sundays, coming in October, if I remembered all that correctly. Buy the book. Go and watch Alice in Edinburgh. Come back next week for more dribble. And when we finish this episode, Alice, traditionally we say, love you, bye.
Love you. Bye.
Lovely.
Love you, bye.